So for this Let's Talk Jinx, like we do every 2 weeks, it's time for the patch, and this patch is patch 12.7. Now, while there are no changes to Jinx, this is something of an MSI being right around the corner, pro play aimed patch, so a lot of the changes in general are aimed at champions that are pretty powerful or maybe super weak in pro play. And with that being said, there's one item change that could affect Jinx, and there are two AD carry changes that might affect Jinx's laning phase, because you might see them more often or less often. The first one being Kalista, with the base mana, move speed, and attack speed growth being increased across the board. Kalista hasn't been seen often in Pro this season, but she has been seen in Pro in other seasons, right? Okay, I'm going to try not to be biased here, but as a Jinx channel, one thing I've noticed is how, bothered, I guess, people are about the Jinx Aphelios meta, and even though they've nerfed both those champions at this point, they're still kind of prominent. And I guess for me personally, I'm a little biased, of course, because for me, like last year, we didn't really see Jinx at all. The year before that, we really saw Jinx at the beginning of the season. That was it. I'm fine with the way things are right now, because it's been a while since we've seen Jinx this relevant, personally, but I understand it. So when I see though buffs to champions we do usually see often, I'm like, oh well, here we go again, right back to the same old. With that being said though, Kalista, admittedly, bias aside, hasn't really been popping up really at all. We've seen some other AD carries rotate through, not really Kalista, so I think that's kind of fair actually. That's where I'm going with all this, kind of fair. The base mana is going up to 30, the move speed is going from 325 to 330, and the attack speed growth is going from 4% to 4.5%. So if you're playing against this champion as Jinx, one of the first things to note is she has 5 base movement speed more than you do, and she already has her passive where if she's good, she can hop around and throw in a bunch of spears before she rends them, and that could be a problem. So with that being said, in the laning phase, one thing you could do is remember you still probably outrange her with the rockets. I know they did nerf the Q range scaling on the rocket launcher specifically, but you can still use that to some of your advantage a little bit. The Flame Chompers, she can't hop over those, so if you really just need to kind of play defensively, use that to your advantage as well, if you do start seeing more Kalista in your games. Because with that base mana also going up a little bit, it means she maybe can use an extra spell even, instead of auto-attacking in laning phase a bit more often, like maybe throw out the Q more often as an extra spear, but also damage before she tries to Ren you, or even just have the mana to Ren you more often if she's messing up last hitting with it and stuff like that. So, those are some tips to keep in mind if you're the Jinx in this particular scenario. Hopefully those helps. Yes, I can speak words. Apparently not right after eating a cookie for some reason. That makes my mouth really weird. But another AD carry change is Zuri. I still really don't know how to properly pronounce. But basically, the AD growth is going from 2 to 1.5. Their attack damage is going from 53 to 87 to 53 to 75.5. Their armor is going from 22 to 20. Their health growth is going from 90 to 95, or is that 98? I can't tell. The line's right in the middle. And the health at level 18 then will be down from, well, I guess it must be, maybe that is actually a buff. Hold on, maybe that's a buff. E cooldown increased early, ratio increase, crits more. So there's a little bit of buffs in here, but AD growth decrease, health growth increase. So that is actually an increase, my bad. So it's 90 to 95 and 2030 to 2115. So giving her a little bit of extra health, because again, like I said, pro play is mainly what this is aimed towards. And in pro play, she is kind of if Jinx Aphelios are banned, you see Zeri, you see Jhin, you see Caitlyn. And I guess that's one of my points overall, is I feel like instead of trying to nerf Jinx and Aphelios anymore, which some people have suggested and I think they're wrong, is other AD carries kind of just need to be buffed at this point. Because you already hit Aphelios and Jinx quite hard in ways that would be more noticeable in pro play than in solo queue, and yet they're still around. So something else must be the problem. Something about the meta or how something's working must benefit them too much. With that being said, if you are Jinx going against this champion now, they are weaker, but they're not necessarily, bottom of the barrel. The base armor being down might also be a little bit of help early too, especially with the attack growth, because what it means is your AD, when you trade, you're going to be doing a little bit more damage, and in the early game, especially when you only have a little bit of health across the board, everybody, that might help. It might hurt a little bit more. You have to play a bit safer, especially if you're playing with an aggressive support that takes Ignite. That might be the difference maker. I know that sounds dumb, but we've all had those games where the enemy gets away with a sliver of health. That might be the difference if you're trading well enough. So we'll see about that as well. Their health is going to be up later after all, though, because the health growth is, going from 90 to 95 and stuff like that. So that might actually cancel each other out, which makes both of these irrelevant, but we'll see. And execution, because execution is where a lot of that matters. Now, here's the one thing that might affect Jinx directly, actually, and it's Gale Force. Gale Force has been the go-to marksman mythic for a while now and has made hyper carries like Jinx and Aphelios a bit too safe in pro play. we're increasing Gale Force active cooldown to give opponents larger windows to punish scaling marksmen before they reach their end game. I know in the subreddit we've had talks before about how, and even some Aphelios players, people that play both, don't actually really build Gale Force and solo queue and stuff. I'm more of a Kraken Slayer guy myself. I know Immortal Shield Bow was nerfed a while ago too. But now they're actually hitting Gale Force, which admittedly makes sense because if you have been watching pro play, or if you haven't, this is an item that Jinx has used, for example, to pop off sometimes and escape some situations that she should have died in. Same with Aphelios for that matter. Even Jhin has been using this a bit to kind of run people down, and that's, you know, a bit of a problem because it's like, well, hey, these guys aren't necessarily supposed to be doing that, but this item is supposed to enable champions like them to be doing that. But it's like a bit, I guess it's like a bit too easy right now because it's a bit up too often, right? Like Flash has a cooldown of 5 minutes after all. This has a cooldown of 1.5 minutes. You know, there you go. So that's kind of how it works, especially when Jinx has her resets going and Aphelios with his stuff. So they're finally hitting this. I wonder if this will create a problem though, where Riot sometimes does this thing, where they'll nerf the champions, nerf the problem, and then not like do any adjustments to the champions if they struggle afterwards, right? So Jinx and Aphelios have been nerfed. Gale Force is now getting nerfed. Will those two champions now start struggling a lot, and will Riot do anything about it if they are? Or is Riot kind of like, well, they've been in the meta for like 4 months now, maybe it is time for them to kind of lay down in the pro play scene. We'll see. But anyways, that's all the changes that might affect Jinx directly, the laning phase, or item changes if you happen to build Gale Force. If you didn't, you kind of can ignore that one. I guess a final honorable mention is the Arcana Xayah skin is coming out, so you might see a lot of Xayahs in your games, at least for the first couple of days of the new patch, because people are going to want to be playing that. They have, you know, an Ahri skin, Hecarim, Ryze, as well as Rakan even. So as a support, you might have Rakan support on your team even, like your support might be Rakan using the skin, or you might see this duo against you because of that. So keep that in mind, but that's all from this video. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, the actual subscribe button. But I don't know which video will be next, because life's gonna have a lot of kinks. So till this time, take care. GG get jinxed. Thank you for watching, and enjoy pizza responsibly.